Hello, everyone. I'll just wait a couple of minutes to allow everyone to jump on, but welcome. So good well, I say so good to see you, but I can't actually see you. But good morning to you all from far and wide. All right. Now, while we're waiting for everyone to jump on, whereabouts are you baking from today? I am in Brisbane. Where's everyone else coming from? I look forward to hearing. Got another Brisbane. Lovely. Slacks Creek, nice. So you're a Queenslander as well. Sydney, lovely, Taya. Newcastle, nice. You're wrong, Pilly. You're pretty close to me, Jem. Oh, Victoria, Southwest Victoria. Awesome. Japan. Real? Oh my gosh, Anna, that's amazing. Bustleton in WA, Darwin, Cordelia. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. Greensboro, another Victorian, fantastic. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see. I've said it again. It's so good to be here with you all. A very, very, very big welcome. Now, let me just get this right. Now, my name is Emma. I am the founder of Hearty Little Kitchen, and I am super excited to do some cooking with you on this beautiful, sunny Thursday. It is the 25th of April. It is, in fact, ANZAC Day. So we are, of course, going to be making ANZAC biscuits. It's very fitting, and it's a fantastic way to commemorate a day like today. But before we get started, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which I am cooking from today, the Yagara and the Turrbal people. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Okay. Hello, everyone. Like I said, a very, very, very big welcome. This is really exciting. So we are going to be making ANZAC biscuits today. And before we jump into the making of the ANZAC biscuits, I just want to really quickly give you a little bit of insight into ANZAC biscuits and why they are such a big thing. Like, why do we make them at this time every single year? Why do they help us to commemorate a day like today? Now, it's thought that, 10 decades ago, when particularly at the time when the Anzacs were arriving in Gallipoli, and then again during the Second World War, that a lot of the wives and sisters and daughters and girlfriends and family members of Anzacs used to bake biscuits that sort of somewhat resemble the ANZAC biscuit that we make today, and they would ship them overseas to the Anzacs. And the reason that they did this was because the biscuits didn't spoil easily because of the ingredients that were in them. They lasted a while, and obviously they'd need to last a while if you're shipping them overseas. And the post back then was not like what it is today. So yeah, obviously it took a little while. Now, the ANZAC biscuits that we make today are a little bit different. The recipe has evolved over time, but that's essentially the history of the ANZACs. And to be honest, I just think that they're one of the most delicious biscuits. Like, they're so simple to make. You really don't need many ingredients. Majority of these ingredients you probably had in your pantry as it was, but they just taste so good. So that's what we're going to make today. So what we're going to do is, before we jump into anything, make sure you've washed your hands, give them a really, really good wash with some warm water and soap. I have already done that. And make sure you preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius on a conventional setting. So my oven is preheating. If you have a fan-forced oven, you can reduce the temperature slightly to 160 degrees. Otherwise, 180 degrees conventional Celsius. Let's go through what we need, our ingredients. Okay. So first of all, let me get this up. Okay. All right. So first things first, we need some rolled oats. These are kind of When I think of ANZAC biscuits, I think of rolled oats. So we need 1.5 cups of rolled oats. We also need some plain flour. We need 1 cup of plain flour. We need some coconut. Now, I've got desiccated coconut, which if you've got it, use it. If you don't have desiccated coconut and you only have shredded coconut, that would be okay as well. Coconut flakes would probably be okay. You could maybe sort of flake them, like break them up a little bit so that they're a bit finer. But yeah, desiccated coconut just basically means coconut that's been really finely shredded. So we need 1 cup of coconut. We need some sugar, some caster sugar. We need 2/3 of a cup of caster sugar. We need some butter. So this is 150 grams of, well, this is unsalted butter. If you've got salted butter, that's totally fine. We also need some golden syrup, which is like the holy grail of ANZAC biscuits. We need 1/3 of a cup of golden syrup. We also need some bicarb soda. Now, bicarb soda is basically what will help our ANZAC biscuits it'll give them a little bit of structure, and it will also help them to rise a little bit. So you need a teaspoon of bicarb soda, and the coolest, if you've ever made ANZAC biscuits before, or if you've ever made one of those cool volcano experiments where you add like bicarbonate vinegar together and it sort of bubbles up and sort of explodes like a volcano. That's kind of what we get to do today. So you'll see shortly. And then you also need some hot water, and that's just to mix with our bicarb to help it dissolve. Those are our ingredients. We've washed our hands. We've preheated our oven. The very first thing that we're going to do now is to line our baking trays, and that is so that it's done. We can then put it to the side, and then we don't have to worry about it. We can get stuck into making our biscuits. So you do need, if you can, 2 large baking trays. So sort of as large as you've got. If you don't have particularly large, you just may need 3. And that's totally fine. Just shift these ingredients out of the way. All right, I'm going to tilt you down so you can see me lining. So literally just grabbing some baking paper to about the length of your tray. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit big. You could, if you really wanted to be particular, you could trim those sides a little bit, but it doesn't matter if you've got a little bit of overhang. So I've got 1 tray done there, and now I'm going to line my other. Oh, a bit of a dodgy cutter. All right. Once you have lined both trays, you can pop them to the side. We do not need to worry about these until a little bit later. All righty. So, what we might do now is mix all of, well, not all, but most of our dry ingredients in our mixing bowl. Yeah, that's what we might do first. So you need a large heat-proof mixing bowl. This is a glass bowl, which works really, really well. If you had a stainless steel bowl, like a metal bowl, that would be totally fine as well. If you had a ceramic bowl, also totally fine. Basically, we are going to put a hot liquid into it later. So just as long as it's heat-proof, which most mixing bowls are. Yeah, and make sure it's big because that's where everything's going to go. All right, I'm going to tilt you down again. Now, make sure if you have any questions at any time, you can pop them into the chat and I will do my very best to answer them. All right, in our bowl, we are going to add our rolled oats. So we need 1.5 cups of rolled oats. So I've got 1 cup measurement here and 1/2 cup. So I'm going to measure 1. See how it's like nice and level? That's going to go straight in there. So that's 1 cup and 1/2 cup straight in there. Now we are done now with the rolled oats. So you can either pop them away in the pantry, which I do say is like cleaning up as you go is a really, really great way to keep the kitchen tidy, and it means less cleanup later. So if you want to pop them away now, you absolutely can. Now we need to add in some plain flour, and we need 1 cup of plain flour. So I'm going to use my little scoopy here, and I'm going to scoop it in. Now we just basically want to make sure that we fill the cup up and that it's nice and even. So I sort of just like pat it, make sure it takes up every kind of bit of space. And if there is any excess, you can sort of brush it off into the jar. Otherwise, that looks pretty good to me. So that can go straight in there. Same thing with the plain flour. We don't need it anymore, so you can pop it away if you would like to. How many? Yes, Gracie, that is a fantastic idea. You can absolutely use a butter knife to help level out your flour. So you can sort of go like that. And Megan, how many oats you need? How many did I say? 1.5 cups. Even I forgot there for a second. So 1.5 cups of oats and 1 cup of plain flour. Now we're going to do our coconut, and we need 1 cup of coconut. So we're going to do exactly the same thing as we just did with our flour. But because this container is a little bit bigger, I'm actually going to try and get, yes, my cup in there. Perfect. Coconut's a little bit easier. So 1 cup of coconut, 1 cup of plain flour, and 1.5 cups of oats. Oats make up the majority of our biscuits, which is why we add more. The plain flour is really important because of the gluten element, so that helps to create like a bond and a structure within the biscuits, and the coconut's just really delicious. So that's why we add coconut. You can put your coconut away too, because we don't need it anymore either. And now it's time to add a little bit of sweetness to our bowl. So we're going to grab our caster sugar, and we need 2/3 of a cup. So this is my 1/3 of a cup measurement, and we need 2 of them. So I'm going to add 1 in, and then another one, and that's 2/3. And then you can pop the sugar away because we don't need that anymore. So there we go. 1.5 cups of rolled oats, 1 cup of plain flour, 1 cup of desiccated coconut, and 2/3 of a cup of caster sugar. Now we want to give that a little bit of a stir. So if you've got a big mixing spoon, you can use that. I'm going to use my funky spotty yellow spatula. And you just want to give it a bit of a mix so that those ingredients are combined. Just like so. Has anyone done anything this morning so far? I got up and went to a dawn service this morning, which was just up the road, which we do every year. And then I went for a big long run. So I've had quite a busy morning, but please let me know. I know there are marches on all around the country. Maybe you went to a march, maybe you went to a morning service or a dawn service as well. All right, there we go. I have got them mixed together. Now I'm just going to pop them to the side because we don't need to worry about this for a little bit longer. So I'm going to pop that bowl over to the side. I'm going to bring you up here so that I can see you because I feel weird sometimes speaking when I can't see you. Grace, you're the school captain at school and you did the service yesterday at school. That's awesome. And Maisie went to a march. I love it. I love it. And Emmett, you went to your local ANZAC march too. I love it. So good. Good on you guys. All right. Now it's time to have a little bit of fun. We are going to be cooking with heat for this, but it is purely just for us to melt our golden syrup and our butter together. So what we need is a saucepan. You need about a medium-sized saucepan, nothing too small, because once we add that bicarb mixture into this, it will bubble up. So make sure you're not using a really small saucepan. I am using one that's sort of a medium size saucepan. Now, grab your scales as well, and I'm going to tilt you back down. I'm going to put my scales down, put my saucepan on top, and I want to make sure that the weight, I'm wondering if you can see it this way. No, you probably can't. The angle might not be right. We want it to be at, oh, it's moving around. We want it to be at 0, which basically means that anything we now add into that, the weight here will tell us what the weight is that we're adding in. And we want 150 grams. So I'm going to add our butter in first, 150 grams, open it up. And pretty much just add it in. 40, 80, 105, 134, getting closer. Oh, 146, I'm close. We need 4 grams more. Oh, almost. Yes, bang on, 150 grams. And pop that butter away now. Okay, so in our saucepan, I've got 150 grams of butter. I don't need my scales anymore, so I'm going to pop them away. And now we need to add our golden syrup. Now, we need 1/3 of a cup of golden syrup. This is, I think, oh no, this has been opened. So this here is my 1/3 of a cup measurement. If you've got a squeezy golden syrup, then this is going to make your life a lot easier. If you've got a container like me, well, that's totally fine. I'll show you what to do, but I literally just tip it. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Yes, I think I did pretty good. It does come out pretty quickly. Oh my goodness. No. I was so close. Look at it, that syrup now falling down. That's all right. We can add that in as well. Sometimes I do that really, really well, and sometimes I make a mess of it. Guess what? Today was one of those days that I made a mess of it, but that's okay. Oh, that's a really great question, Anna. Can maple syrup substitute for golden? Because there's no golden syrup in Japan. Do you know what? I've never tried these with maple syrup, but to be perfectly honest, Anna, I do not see why it wouldn't work. So give it a go. As long as you're using a syrup, you could even probably use honey. Honey would also probably work. But honestly, please give the maple syrup a go, because I'm quite sure that that would work out as well. Then we're going to add our syrup into our saucepan. And that's 1/3 of a cup of syrup. So 150 grams of butter and 1/3 of a cup of syrup. You might need a little help getting that syrup out. One little tip and trick that you can do in future is to grease your measuring cup. So either grab a little bit of butter and sort of grease the inside of your measuring cup before you add the syrup. Butter or oil or coconut oil or whatever oil you've got. Otherwise, you can just use some sort of rubber spatula to help you get it all out, just because we don't want to waste any. That's pretty good though. All right. So your saucepan should, let me move that. Your saucepan should look like this: 150 grams of butter, 1/3 of a cup of golden syrup. Okay. So we're going to work with our stove now. And we are going to place our saucepan on top of our stove. We only want it on a low heat because we just really want to gently melt that golden syrup and butter together. So if your heat is too hot, it will melt really quickly and there is a chance that it will burn. So just make sure you turn your heat down sort of as low as you can and just let it really gently melt together. You'll see that the golden syrup pretty much starts to get a lot softer pretty quickly. And then depending on how big your chunks of butter were that you cut when you measured it will depend on how quickly it melts. Mine are pretty big, so I might be here for a minute or so. While that's doing its thing though, and we will stir it occasionally. I'll just shift that slightly to the side. No, I'll shift it over this side so you can see. We need to dissolve our bicarb soda in some hot water. So we need, make sure to keep an eye on this, and you can just give it a little stir every now and then. Meanwhile, we need 1 teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda. You're going to pop that into like a heat-proof, because we're going to add hot water into this, like a heat-proof little jug or bowl. This is a really great, just, I don't know, like a Pyrex glass jug. And then we need 2 tablespoons of hot water. Now, you can just get hot water out of the tap. It doesn't have to be boiling water. It can just be really hot water from the tap. I boiled this water just before, so it's not boiling, but it'll still be quite warm. And I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of that in. And the only reason we do this is to just help that bicarb soda start to dissolve before we add it into our mixture. Now, how is your mix? Look, I'm really multitasking here, aren't I? I'm mixing my butter and golden syrup, which has just about melted. In fact, there's no just about it. It's sort of started to bubble, but oh my goodness, it smells so good. Isabel, can you use boiling water? Yes, you can use boiling water. That's totally fine. Doesn't matter if it's boiling, but it doesn't have to be boiling. Look at that. All right. Once you've given it a little mix, now you can probably see my bicarb soda has not completely melted. That's okay. It will continue to melt once we add it into our mixture. We just sort of want to give it a bit of a head start. So we've got 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda and we've got 2 tablespoons, which is about 40 mils of hot or boiling water. Once you've given that a little mix, I then want you, doesn't matter if your heat is still on, make sure it's still on low. We're then going to pour this into your saucepan and watch what happens. It'll foam up. I don't know if you can see that. It'll foam up, which is really, really cool. And that is literally because the bicarb interacts with the syrup. And that's what sort of causes that chemical reaction. Give it a little stir and then you can turn the heat off. And you'll notice that as you sort of stir it, it'll still be a little bit frothy and bubbly, but it'll start to sort of calm down a little bit. Gosh, it smells so good. It's like liquid gold, don't you reckon? I say that about everything, but it seriously is. Okay. So we've got our mixture here of butter and golden syrup and bicarb soda. And we've got our dry mixture here. And we're now literally just going to add that straight in. Make sure you scrape as much out of the saucepan as possible. And remember that this saucepan is hot. So you want to, we're done with it now, but you want to make sure that you put it on a, like a heat-proof surface. So I'm going to put mine back on the stove, but just be careful you don't put it straight on your bench top. Otherwise, you might have some answering to mum or dad to do. And then we're just going to give it a mix. That's okay, Gracie. If all your bicarb is just sitting at the bottom, that is totally fine. Just make sure that when you add it into your golden syrup and butter mixture, that you scrape it out of the bottom, because the heat from the saucepan and from those liquid ingredients will continue to melt it. So don't fret too much. Some of it will have dissolved. And look at that. We have literally made our ANZAC biscuit dough. Oh my goodness. And can I be perfectly honest? I actually think sometimes, I don't think sometimes, I think all of the time, that ANZAC biscuit dough actually tastes better than cooked ANZAC biscuits. Yep, I said it. Not that I don't love an ANZAC biscuit, I do, but seriously, this dough, like, that is the real deal. How good. So just give it a mix until there are no dry bits left. Sort of come around and underneath. Soph, you agree with me? Good on you, Soph. I knew I liked you. All right. There you go. How good does that look? How good does that smell? How good does that taste? You have my full permission to taste as you go. All good chefs must taste their food as they make it. That is a fact. Never trust a chef who does not try their food as they make it. Okay. So now it's time to roll. Now I'm having a few issues with this piece of baking paper here. It's just a little bit too big and it's just trying to get away from me. So I'm just going to trim it a little bit in the hopes that that helps. You could grease the bottom of your tray with some butter or oil as well to help the baking paper sit a little better. But I think that generally this works. There we go. That's cooperating a little bit more. Okay. So we have done everything we need to do except roll our dough. Now, when I make ANZAC biscuits, I use a tablespoon measure. And here's a fun little fact. In Australia, our tablespoon measurements are 20 mils. In other countries, such as the UK, the US, their tablespoon measures are 15 mils. Actually, when it comes to cooking, yes, sometimes it does matter. You may find that you have 15 mil tablespoons at home in the drawer. Doesn't really matter, but there you go. There's a fun little fact. You learn something new every day. So I'm going to use my tablespoon measure to grab some dough. And then I literally just sort of form it into a bit of a kind of a ball, squash it down a little bit. You don't need to worry about squashing it down too much because as these cookies bake, they will spread out. The more you squash them down, the more that they will cook. If you like, and there is much debate over the type of perfect ANZAC biscuit, the ones that I make, because I don't squash them down too much, end up being crispy on the outside and chewy in the middle. But if you flatten them down more, you're probably more likely to get a really crispy ANZAC biscuit just because the cooking time will mean that it sort of cooks more. If you keep them quite upright, they will be slightly more chewy. So it's entirely up to you. You could even do a tray of both. Entirely up to you. But just make sure that you give them lots of space because, like I said, they will spread out as we cook them, as we pop them in the oven. Yes, Maisie, you agree the dough is better. It's just so good. Just don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is. It's butter and it's sugar and it's flour and coconut and, oh my goodness. Delicious. Oh, yum. So once we have done all of this, there is literally only one thing left to do. I tell a lie. There is 2 things left to do. And that is, no, actually, depending on how you look at it, there's 3 things left to do. There is, obviously we need to put them in the oven. So once we've rolled all of our ANZACs, we will pop them in the oven to bake. We need to clean up. So we need to wash up the things that we've used, put our ingredients away. And then the third, and arguably the most important job, is to take them out of the oven and eat them and enjoy the heck out of these ANZAC biscuits. Enjoy the fruits of your labor, because you have worked hard today to make these ANZAC biscuits, and it is so important to enjoy the things that we spend time doing. You can enjoy them all to yourself, or you may like to share them with some friends or family members. Okay. Crunchy on the outside and soft on the middle is best. Yes, Mariana, I agree. Can you add the bicarb soda straight into the saucepan without dissolving? That's a really good question, Sarah. Look, you probably, yeah, to be honest, you probably could. The little bit of extra water obviously sort of helps it to dissolve first. And it also acts as like it's a tiny little bit more liquid and hydration for the biscuits. So if you can add the water, I would suggest doing it. You could always just put it in some cold water. To be honest, I've never tried it without the water, but I know that many recipes do add it to a little bit of water first. But look, to be perfectly honest, you probably could. It's not like it's, you know, the most important ingredient in these biscuits. No worries, Sarah. I'm sorry. I don't even know if I properly gave you a really good answer to that question. But if you do it, please let me know. All right. Now I am going to fill these 2 trays. And then I think I'm going to have to get a third because I'm not going to fit any more. But that is okay. How many have we made so far? 9, not quite 18. Maybe I can fit another one. Let's see. I reckon I can. Fit one more over here. And then I might need one more tray. And it's okay if you don't have space in your oven to cook all of them at once, then that is totally okay. You can cook your first batch and then you can cook your other batch after. I'm just going to really quickly wash my hands before I grab a third tray out. All right. Oh, make a bit of space. And then we'll roll the last little bit of our dough. Oh, yes, Maya. I am so pleased that these are so delicious. I love hearing that. I worked very hard on developing this recipe. And look, to be perfectly honest, it's probably not that much different to other recipes because an ANZAC is an ANZAC. But still, I'm very particular. A lot of people do like crunchy dough, crunchy ANZACs. A lot of people like chewy ANZACs. And I fall somewhere in the middle. All right, everyone. Once you have rolled your dough, you can pop your trays into the oven. These will cook, I think from memory, these cook for about maybe 18 to 20 minutes. But I would recommend popping them in the oven for 15 minutes to start off with because everyone's oven is different, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. And then you can test them. And if they need a little bit more cooking time, then you can just pop them back in. You can always cook something for longer, but you can't uncook it once it's been cooked. So make sure that you sort of just check it as you go. All right. Oh, baking them in a grill. Well, I see why not, Anna. Maybe just make sure that you keep an eye on them and maybe keep them as far away from the grill as possible. Like, don't put them too high up close to the grill. Otherwise, they'll sort of start to burn on the outside before they've properly cooked on the inside. But please give it a go. I mean, that's the beauty of cooking from home, is that we can kind of experiment, you know? All right, my hands are a bit messy again, but I am going to bring you up here so I can see you. Okay. Oh, fantastic, Sienna. You're learning about capacity in maths, so this has helped. My pleasure. That's the beauty of cooking as well, is that we are literally doing, and some of you might roll your eyes at this, but cooking is a bit of maths, it's a bit of English, it's a bit of science, it's a bit of everything. Like, you're developing so many skills as you do this, and that will then help you in your subjects at school, because it helps those subjects have kind of a real life context, if you know what I mean. That's one of my favorite things about teaching in the classroom, is leading kids towards the realization that the things that we learn at school, the things that you kind of think, okay, how am I ever going to relate this to anything in life, that actually are relevant, I promise you. Because I was that kid at school that was like, oh, this is never going to be relevant to anything I do in my life. Joke's on me, because it is. Okay, everyone, time to pop these in. Thank you so much for cooking along with me. As I said, pop them in the oven. Just keep an eye on them. Start with sort of 12 to 15 minutes. Keep an eye on them. If you need to change, you know, if you've got a tray in at the top and a tray in at the bottom and you need to swap them around, do that. Just keep an eye on them. Take them out when you're ready. If you want to cook them for a little bit longer than I say, that's totally fine as well. Everyone has different tastes and everyone has a different oven, so you do you. But thank you so much. Please send me some photos of your ANZAC biscuits. I always love to see the things that you cook. And thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and I look forward to cooking with you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.